Former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, Jay Town, joins me. Jay, all right, let's sort through what's happened with Mark Meadows. Is he fought when he lost his case to move it to federal court with the trial court judge, the federal judge? He filed a motion to stop the proceeding. That was not granted. Now he's taken it up to the Court of Appeals to do two things. One is to reverse the trial court judge, saying it should be moved to the federal court, but also for an order in the meantime to put a hold on Georgia so they don't go forward. Is that where we are?
It's exactly where we are, Greta, and good evening to you. There are some tea leaves, though, in the request from the 11th Circuit. So the sort of controlling case regarding the removal statute, which is 28 U.S.C. 1441 for those keeping score at home, the case is Baucom versus Martin. And what the 11th Circuit has asked Fani Willis to do, really both parties, is to say, hey, can we apply the removal statute to a former federal officer? And the reason why the 11th Circuit has asked that question is because they can't make a decision unless a certain question is briefed on the record. They can't just go off and make decisions about fact scenarios that don't exist in front of them. Now that it will, it signals to me the 11th Circuit is not only going to remove this to federal court, but they're going to make it law in the 11th Circuit that former officers can be removed after their post, if you will, after their duty is done.
And when you say removed, you mean moved over from state court to federal court. Removed sounds like you're getting taken away. It just means transferring the case from state and federal court. Removed being the legal term. All right. So we're waiting to see what the 11th Circuit does. They're going to brief it by noon tomorrow. Both sides to brief it. What I thought was sort of interesting is that they're moving quite rapidly. The 11th Circuit they've got to move rapidly on the stay because things are moving forward in Georgia. But the actual decision. They're moving forward fast on that. But if Meadows wins, then wouldn't you expect that Trump would win on his request to move it to federal court as well?
Yes, and because what will happen is the district court judge, who will have to be reversed by the 11th Circuit in your scenario, which I believe will happen, he now has this controlling dicta from the 11th Circuit that says, under these circumstances, you have to remove the defendant from state court to federal court, as Meadows has requested and as President Trump likely will. So that makes the path much easier. So George Terwilliger, who's the lawyer for Mark Meadows, they've really blazed a trail here to make it easy, really, for all the defendants. They might all get pulled into the federal court.
All right, the U.S. Court of Appeals is actually moving a little bit faster on the briefing schedule for the question whether it should be removed or not, at least faster than I thought. But somebody is going to lose in the U.S. Court of Appeals. It's either going to be Fani Willis or Mark Meadows. Once that person loses, I take it that person's then going to go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is still in recess until the first Monday in October, but they take emergency proceedings. Would you expect this to be on some accelerated calendar on the Supreme Court, or would you expect this to be put on the regular calendar, because in that case it could go until June?
So it's interesting. It really depends on who loses. If the state of Georgia, Fani Willis, loses at the 11th Circuit, I'm not so sure that they have a right to appeal it. Whereas if Mark Meadows loses, he has irreparable harm, so he would have the ability to appeal to the Supreme Court. I will say this. I don't think the Supreme Court would grant cert in something like this. I think that they're going to keep it at the well.
If Mark Meadows loses, because look, the Supreme Court wants to stay away from politics. They've been saying that since 2000. They want to, but they do get dragged into cases that are sort of woven with politics. But I think if Mark Meadows loses the 11th Circuit and he seeks cert, I think this is a decision the Supreme Court will have to resolve one way or another.
I think Mark Meadows might have a chance. I don't think Fani Willis has a snowball's chance, and you know where, if she appeals to the Supreme Court. I'm really not sure that they would grant her any kind of certiorari.
Well, she's got a lot of spare time on her hands because apparently she's not trying these cases.
Yeah.
She's outsourcing everything.
Right.
She's got
Can you
spare
imagine?
time.
Real quick on Huddy's reporting, that when he's a former municipal judge. You know what municipal judges do? Traffic court. That's what they do. And this is the guy who's prosecuting the former president. Sorry, Greta. It's just amazing.
We'll talk tomorrow. Jay Town, thank you.